Hi, everyone. Welcome to Season 2 of the Mustang Hockey Virtual Hot Stove Series. We're coming to you live from Strathroy and London, Ontario with our first edition of Season 2. Really pleased to have Don Van Massenhoven on tonight as our special guest, former NHL official and current Director of Officiating Operations for the National Hockey League. Also, this year, very pleased to welcome back to the interviewer seat, Ryan Robinson, our lead sports information director here at Western. Ryan did such an outstanding job directing the 6 episodes last year. We're really happy he's back again. We had tons of great feedback after our first season, so we thought we'd bring a second season to all our viewers, alumni, and friends, and hope you enjoy this complimentary link tonight for Don's session. Our good friend of mine, director of scouting for Western and also our video coach, Dan Gibson, who is also a great friend and has known Don for a long time, is here to introduce Don. I hope everybody enjoys the hour show. Gibby?
Thanks, Clark. And tonight's guest for the Hot Stove, Don Van Massenhoven, former on-ice NHL referee for 23 seasons, officiated 1,338 games, I believe it was. Officiated some of the biggest events in hockey, the Memorial Cup Finals, the Calder Cup Final, World Cup of Hockey, the Winter Olympics, NHL All-Star Game, 7 Stanley Cup Conference Finals, and I believe it was the first Winter Classic for the National Hockey League. The old saying goes that if you're good enough, they will find you. Don, when he was officiating in the OHL, wasn't originally on the NHL's scouting list. And the scouting crew for the officials attended a Memorial Cup game to watch a younger Steve Wacom at the time, and came away with not just Steve Wacom, but at that time put Don Van Massenhoven on their recruit list, and a few years later was in the National Hockey League. Ironically, the person that hired him, Brian Lewis, and gave him his first NHL game, is the director of officiating for the OUA now. So some interesting information there. Don has some phenomenal stories from his career, a fun and comical story about his jersey and his equipment for the first NHL game that he did, a critical and difficult call in his 1,000th game that he did in Toronto. He was officiating in Detroit the night that Yuri Fisher went into cardiac arrest. And then one night later, Don himself was hit by a 90-mile-an-hour slap shot while officiating in Florida. An injury that would have ended any athlete's career, let alone how close it could have been to ending Don's life. 9 weeks later, he returned to the ice and was officiating the Winter Olympics in Italy. Don's also very proud, I know, that he always ranked near the top of the fitness testing for the NHL officials when he was doing games. And another thing he was proud of, he was always ranked on the unofficial list in the 5 most respected officials in the National Hockey League. Another great feature of Don's career. When he retired from the ice, he stayed in the game. He's now the director of officiating operations for the National Hockey League, like Clark said. And off the ice, he's obviously an upstanding citizen. He gives back to the community like no other person. He was the Citizen of the Year in Park Hill, Ontario, where he originally grew up. He is an honorary inspector of the OPP, where he was an officer for 10 years. Former president of the Strathroy Rockets and former billet family for Junior B players. He was part of the hometown hockey, a big part of the hometown hockey event that was held in Strathroy, Ontario. He organized and ran the DVM Celebrity Ball Game, which raised $226,000 and sent the Dream Lift for kids to Disneyland, which, again, another great feature of Don being active off the ice, not just on the ice. Now, you can't forget the fact that 23 years on the road, he's going to be celebrating his 40th anniversary coming this year with his wife, Chris, and he still maintains a very close relationship with his 2 daughters, Katie and Megan. Don himself even attended some of the Western games the last time that we were able to take to the ice. And then there's the great Chris Chelios once said, if I did have a favorite official, it would have to be Donnie. I could go on for a while about different things, but I think I'll let Ryan take that over. So I appreciate the let me do the introduction, Clark, and Ryan, I'll turn it over to you.
I feel like I should just let two old buddies talk together, and I should just leave for about half an hour, 45 minutes, and come back just to, negotiate that aspect. So I also feel slightly like, this is for those who are involved in the junior B level. I feel like this is the London Nationals guy that everybody says, the evil blue and white guy, now talking to the two Strathroy Rocket guys. And I've got a story. I brought it up a little bit earlier, but we'll have a little fun. Gibby, nice to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. Looking forward to seeing you at the rink sometime soon.
Excellent. Thanks, Ryan.
Appreciate it, Gibby, and we'll let Gibby join join the rest of everybody. And he's globetrotting, I think. Didn't he say, Don? He's all over the world too, isn't he?
He's trying to be like me. He's living in a hotel room.
So this is a fun one for me, Don, because I think obviously, like any red-blooded hockey fan in Southern Ontario, we know you. We feel like how many times do you have people walk up to you at rinks and they just start talking to you like they've known you for years, and you're going, and you are
kind of over the years a lot, a little less now maybe because I'm not on the ice. But one time I remember being in the grocery store checking out with my wife, and I could see it coming because the lady across with two little boys is looking and turning her head and looking, and all of a sudden she just goes, "That's Don Van Massenhoven, the NHL referee." And the best thing ever, the cashier turned and goes, "Yeah, so what? He's one of us." And I took that as the biggest compliment you could ever have.
Very nice, very nice, and that's the thing too, right? Especially in the line of work that you had for so many years. I know as a person who has called a hockey game or two, I finally got to the point where I realized when the referees were coming up to me all the time and saying, "Mr. Robinson, we watched your game last week." How much was that an aspect of it, or especially when you are an official, did you have to just kind of, whether it was just the fan, the player, the coach, the GM, or did you always have to kind of have that range ready to go?
Well, it'd be easy to say, "Oh, you tune it all out," but everybody's human. I'm a hockey junkie, for lack of a better term. Like I love hockey. That's why I helped out with the Rockets. That's why I went to minor hockey games to watch my nephews play. So you watch hockey and you do hear things. So, well, over the years I got to know different, like yourself, I've met different media people, and they're no different than referees. They're good people too. So I never had too many bad incidents or things that I couldn't talk to people, and I never mind. I've had people just recently say, "Oh, just ask me a question." "No, I'm so sorry." I said, "No, it's okay." Like you get the odd person that they kind of grill you, and that but that's okay. I can handle that too.
How were there those guys that were like everything? Is it just the game of hockey is very much like the game of life, where you get some that are a little more difficult to deal with, some guys a little more easier to deal with, or did you have that list in the back pocket of the coaches that it's like, all right, I already know what you're coming with every single night. Let's just have our conversation and get it out of the way.
No, that's probably a good way to put it. Like that overall, one thing about the NHL, when you're there for a long time, they get to know you, and usually is a good thing. They respect you, and and you have your little incidents, but they know they're going to see you again. But there was some coaches, and that you might say early in the game when they yelled, say, "Okay, we're not doing this tonight all night, so that's it," or there might be a few other words in there that I won't repeat, but what happens on the ice stays on the ice, so to speak.
The things happen periodically, right? I won't do the who were theys and all that sort of stuff.
Well, I was waiting, thinking you're going to try that, but it wasn't going to have anything to tell you.
I'm smart enough at this point. I realized don't ask the questions you're not going to get the answers to. So, Gibby mentioned it off the top. Obviously, you had a background in policing, sort of thing. Is that kind of where the love of hockey, and obviously when you're a police officer, you're out there to enforce the law, sort of thing. Is that did it transfer easily from that interest from hockey and law enforcement to into refereeing, or did it kind of just come by happen chance?
Well, to be honest, it kind of was the reverse. I was a minor hockey referee at the age of 15, and then I was in junior B and as a 22-year-old, and then I applied the OPP at 24. And true story, I'm in my interview with the recruiter, haven't decided if they're going to hire me, and he said to me, "Okay, tell me why you think you could be a police officer." So said, well, I referee hockey. And he just goes, excuse me? Like, I had to finish the sentence, and I'll always remember him saying, excuse me? What's that got to do with anything? And I said, well, I'm in a uniform. I'm out controlling people. I have to take charge. I have to make difficult, quick decisions, and I have to be calm and composed. And so I narrate this all off, and he goes, huh, I never played hockey. I never thought of that. So the officiating helped me become a police officer, I really believe. And then over years of seeing things on the police force, you learn to stay composed and things like that. And that then helped me later in the higher levels of refereeing. So they were very compatible. There was a lot of guys when I was in the OHL, a lot of guys, I can start listing names, but that were police officers and did refereeing as a hobby. Kenny Miller, Timmy Foster, Jimmy Houston. It was a kind of a natural tie-in a way, you know. Oh, now I will say that guys used to say, like, don't referee like a police officer, meaning don't be over officious. And I don't think police officers should be over officious either. I never thought I was one like that. I tried not to be. So that's you know, that's the trick. Don't take yourself too seriously.
And then obviously there was a point where you go from officiating into policing, and then you go from policing back to officiating, sort of thing. Obviously, I'm assuming it probably continued throughout, and then all of a sudden it was just opportunity and movement kind of happens, and then the next step, kind of much the same way that we say, minor hockey turns to junior hockey hockey turns to some AHL and some ECHL. I know it's kind of that's the pillar. Even talking to some of the guys, even the local guys. I know there's a few of them in the area that are now making their way into into Carter Sandlack and those kind of guys that are making their way up, sort of thing. Is that the exact same path, I'm assuming, and or was it different in kind of the early '90s when you were starting up?
No, it was pretty similar. And Gibby, his intro there. Thank you, by the way, Gibby. But I brought back some memories that even I'd forgot about. But when he talked about 1990, I was doing OHL games. I was refereeing and considered one of the top refs. But in 1990, I was 30 years old, so you can do the math there. I wasn't looking at a referee. I loved the OHL, like what I was refereeing, but I was a police officer. I was actually up for promotion to a sergeant. And then I was chosen to do the Memorial Cup in Hamilton, the one that Eric Lindros, Oshawa Generals, Kitchener Rangers, one of the bigger ones of all time. I was chosen to work that. Steve Walcom was on the NHL radar, and they were hiring guys 25, 26, 27. So I was 30. I literally didn't really even give it another thought, other than I wanted to be at the Memorial Cup and work to the best of my ability. Brian Lewis, who did hire me, was there, and they came in after and said, we'd like to offer you a contract. I was taken aback, kind of like, I don't even know if I can't say honestly back then I had the dream, because I was so happy in my police career that I hadn't thought of it. And then it was like, and not to segue too much, but at that time, the starting salary for an NHL referee or American League, I had to go to the American League, was $22,500, and I was making $46,000 on the OPP. So that decision did not come easily to leave. And thankfully, the OPP went out of their way to help me. Like, I had a pretty good career, and they gave me a leave of absence from September to May, and I refereed full time. And then I came back to be on the OPP at Grand Bend, which was perfect timing in May, busy. I did that for 2 years, and that supplemented my income. I couldn't have taken the job. I can't take a 50% pay cut. I had 2 young daughters, and we had just bought a house. So, it was the right move, but it wasn't an easy decision at the time.
And Gibby mentioned it there off the top. He gave a little piece, but he didn't give the full story. The uniform number has a story behind it.
Well, I think he was talking about the pants. I'll have to ask him what he meant by the uniform. But my first game, I think that's what he's referring to. The comical story there. We had referees now have referee pants, but back then all you wore was black trousers. And my first game was in Boston, November 11, 1993. A Boston Garden, single referee. I'm working with Bob Hodges and Ron Asseltine, both 25-year linesmen. And I'm in the dressing room. You have your ritual how you get dressed, and you pull your slacks on, your pants, and you leave it unzipped because you're tying your skates. And I stand up, and it's now 10 minutes to game time, and I pull up the zipper, and it breaks. So my fly is open, and my fingers were I was trying to put the zipper back together, and I literally had one of the guys had to come over and fix my pants. enough that I could it was panic mode. I was panic city.
There's always a good story to the first one, right?
Yeah, yeah. They don't have zippers anymore in those pants.
You had some input into that. Let's go do away with that. Let's.
Yeah.
When it comes to those situations, though, that first game, I know I've talked to a couple guys, and they always say there's memorable games, but there's how much do you remember from that first game, or is it just the pants story, and then after that it kind of became just a hockey game kind of thing?
Eventually became. I remember certain things. I remember like getting the call. Actually, Brian Lewis's secretary, Kelly Ross, and she still works for the NHL, called me the day before. And what was happening, I wasn't scheduled. Like normally you'd be weeks in advance. You might even be able to take your family, but that's another story. I get called the day before because the officials our union was in contract negotiations with the NHL. And I forget one of the referees was supposed to work the game was on our executive. And they were into the final stages of negotiating our contract or whether we were going to go on strike. And I got called to go. And I remember Kelly calling me and saying, I've got a game assignment change for you. I was working strictly American League. So I've got a game tomorrow, 1 p.m. Now it's 2 o'clock. I'm in Strathroy on a Wednesday. This is a Remembrance Day game, which is one Boston always plays on their Veterans Day at 1 o'clock. You've got a game tomorrow, 1 o'clock, Boston Garden. And I said, Kelly, whoa, did you just say Boston Garden? She goes, yeah. I said, like Boston Bruins, Boston Garden? And she goes, is this your first NHL game? I went, yeah. And she goes, oh, congratulations. And I go, I got to get there. And she's like, what? I said, I'm 2 hours from Pearson Airport and it's 1 o'clock. Like I knew when the games were. My wife was at work. I was supposed to pick up the kids. I remember calling her and saying, I can't pick up the kids. I'm going to Boston. And then, it was probably a blessing in disguise. No time to think about it. No time for nervousness. Packed bag, bolted out the door to Pearson. I don't know what time my flight was. I got into Boston that night and then did the game. And I remember being out at center, standing there playing the U.S. anthem and looking towards the flags, and then like a Ray Bork standing there and Cam Neely, and Boston Garden was a small arena. The old arena, the new ones are beautiful, but the old small tight barns like Windsor Arena and even the old Ice House, the Gardens, those were the really cool buildings to work in. So I worked in every NHL building, and I remember all that. After that, actually, I don't know who won. They played the Edmonton Oilers. I don't know who won that game. I don't know how many penalties I called. I don't know what the hell happened. So
what is that travel schedule like? Because I know that's the one thing that I think some people definitely don't frankly appreciate enough. They know about the fact that obviously Team A plays, and then depending on the time, the team goes to the plane flies them to the next city. Obviously, that's the grind of being a hockey player in an 82 game season. People don't realize just how tough it is. You guys are going here to here to here to here to here to here to here, and those things are they organized? You take care of your own travel, all those sort of things.
Well, you're really touching something there, Ryan. Like that is the unknown part of the job that people you're absolutely have no idea. Even the younger guys, you mentioned Carter Sandlak, we hired him, a London boy, and he's been doing games, but now he will find out. And the travel is the killer. Like you can train. I used to say you can go to the gym, you can skate, you can lift weights, but you can't train for travel. And you literally, like I might have went to Boston, like let's say I'm a full-time NHL. I do that game in Boston. If it's an afternoon game, I try to get a flight at 6 or 7 o'clock. So you're kind of rushing after the game and you're going to the airport and you're maybe flying to your next city. And that means you're getting in late at night. And then the next day you work out and then there's a game. And then the next day you might be, flying again early. You're always flying commercial. So you always got to go to the airport. Anyone that traveled on a holiday or whatever, and you go to the airport, you know what that's like. Well, we do that 60, 70 times a year, 72 games. Very, very, very. It's been an exception with COVID. The guys stayed in the same city for 2 games. That doesn't happen. You do a game and you basically got to get out of town. That's been the concept forever. You go to the next city. So I just looked. I was curious. Not that you were going to ask me, but I looked at we stay at the Marriott chain hotel, and I looked, and I have 3,755 nights at a Marriott hotel over the span of my career. Now, 365 days in a year, so 3,755. So I've spent 10 full years in a hotel 365 days a year of 10 years, if you simple math, which is kind of daunting. But we do our own travel. We have a travel agent, but we call them. We book the hotels. It's good though, because you learn. My wife and I, with the kids, we go on a trip. I know all the ins and outs of, airlines, hotels. You gain a lot of valuable experience. Valuable for travel, not much else, I guess. But it's daunting and it's tiresome. But I never minded it. It was just part of the job. But it wears you down.
Is that the key aspect there? Because obviously, when you look to the fact that when you decide enough, I'm going to retire, those kind of things. Was it the fact that and I know the amount of times that people have said to me, and I've heard over the years, doesn't matter what the job is, was it when it stops being fun, or was it I think it's time to I've had enough of the hotels and the planes and all that kind of thing, and the especially in the last year in COVID, I've heard a lot of people, they say, I didn't realize what it was like to be home for 3 nights in a row, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's part of all of it. I remember Terry Gregson. He was the referee in chief when last year, second last year actually, and he talked to me about what I thought of when wasn't asking me to retire, but we have succession planning, we call it, where and I kind of look after that now. You talk to the older officials and just to get a feeling so we can plan, plan when they might be leaving and when we might have to hire new people. So it's a great concept. And he said to me, I said, I don't know when I want to retire. And he said, you'll know, because you won't really want to travel anymore. You won't really want to work out 24/7, and you want home more. And it kind of came to that. Now I was kind of wanting to work another year, but Stephen Walcom had taken over the department. Terry had retired, and Stephen and I go back a long way. We were friends junior, worked at Memorial Cup in Hamilton together. And when he took over the department, he called me up like middle of the season, and said, I want you to come help me, come work with me in the department. I said, well, Stephen, I kind of want to work another year. And he said, well, I have this position I'm creating for you, and I want you to, and I said, well, can I wait another year? Well, and he goes, well, you could wait, but I don't know if the position will be available. So I said, all right, give me a week. It was right at Christmas time. Talked to my family, and it was the right move, because I love what I'm doing. I'm 7 years now already, and he's a good man, good to work with, and I'm still involved, and I get to help the officials, and it was the perfect time.
Now, in that situation of, what point did you feel like you're, when you guys are, and everybody works, obviously, different pairings, whether it be, linesman situations and stuff like that, so you end up getting to kind of work with a little bit of everybody, sort of thing. Is it a scenario? When did you start realizing that guys were coming to you and kind of saying, hey, Don, a couple thoughts on this, and how do I do that? And how do I handle these kind of situations, or do those conversations kind of happen?
You mean you're asking me when did I realize I was one of the old guys?
No, I was trying to do it nicely.
I don't know when that happens. That is just all of a sudden happens. Like you're in your first year, and you're a first year guy, so they give you more leeway in your first year than your second year. The teams, when I say, and even your colleagues, because it's your first year. But by your second year, they're like, okay, no more freebies, no more screw ups, and then I don't know if it's year 7, 8. I think once you make the playoffs, I made the playoffs in my 7th year, and then you're seen as one of the top performers, and the teams know, and then all of a sudden, and then you're going along, and then all of a sudden at your in the twilight, and you get amazing respect, actually, when you've been around for 15, 20 years, players and coaches. It's somewhere in there, it just, the respect level really, I was always felt I was good at giving back respect, so I think that's a two-way street. But and then you have the guys asking you and work, and it's fun. It's actually fun when you're on the ice to work with young guys, and they keep you young and keep you moving around. I had 2 knee surgeries, so it was the game was already pretty fast when I left in 2014, but it was getting faster, and as you get slower, it gets faster for sure. So now I watch it and I go, oh boy. And I'm up high, but if I'm down low at ice level, people, it's wicked fast.
At what point was it that, I want to say was it that 05 year where all of a sudden the game got a little faster, sort of thing? Because there was a big push to kind of speed the game up, and obviously some changes made to the rules and lines and all that kind of stuff. Was it as noticeable of how quick of a speed up it took all of a sudden there?
Yeah, yes. That was 04. We had the lockout in 04. Then Stephen Walcom, who was, again, Stephen came off the ice. He was only about 48. They recruited him to come on and take over the officiating department. And he really pushed on us to call hooking on the hands. And I know there's people that watch and go, oh, that's a ticky-tack pound. But the fact that you can't hook the stars on the hands and the shoulders and the arms and grab them, you can watch the old video. It's kind of comical now to watch it. I refed it, and I let them play. That's what they wanted. But now it really did pick it up, the guys not being able to be obstructed. I often wonder what could Mary Lemieux and Wayne Gretzky and Yammer Yager, how many points could they have scored? Unbelievable, because for how the points they scored. Now goaltending was different. Equipment was different. So I guess it all evens out maybe.
Who are those guys? Kind of, were there a couple guys from the earlier days, sort of thing, that obviously you get out there and you're the official of the game, sort of thing. But at the same point, as you said, you've always been a hockey fan. You don't get that starstruck effect, but all of a sudden you're on the ice and you go, wait a second, that's so and so. But then he goes from a guy in the rink to, as you say, respect, kind of back and forth scenario. Is there a few of those guys that early on, sort of thing?
Oh, absolutely. I can remember. First we did the LA Kings. Wayne Gretzky was with the Kings, and the Kings were in Dallas. That I can remember clear as day, skating around, and I just turned over my shoulder, and there's Gretzky beside me, and I went, "Holy shit!" I am like, this is Wayne Gretzky, like the black and silver jerseys, and wow. And then you get back in mode, and you got to do what you got to do. But it was pretty cool. I can't lie. And then then Mario was just grace on ice, like for a big man, he could just like a hot knife through butter. Like really, you do got to watch it, because you can get caught up kind of admiring them a little. Not that you're not going to referee them, but you kind of, I enjoy a good player, a great save. Patrick Waugh making a great save, or it was pretty cool to be right there and watch some things like that happen over the years.
Was there the biggest mouthpiece that you ever had to run into? And every time you'd go into a rink, you go, not him again.
Well, there could be a guy with the first name Sean and the last name Every, maybe, that would fit under that category. If you put the names together, that is.
It's like, it's the age old, it starts with S and last name sort of thing. So at those points, though, is there a scenario where you start kind of, going over and having that conversation before saying, all right, we've had enough, let's just move on? Or is it just you get some of those personalities when you're an official and you just kind of, what's coming and you just get used to dealing with it, kind of thing?
Yeah, Again, the policing really helped, because I didn't get into a lot of scuffles. Now, as a big guy, maybe people didn't want to scuffle with me, but they always taught us in the police force, it was verbal judo. Like, you can defuse more things with your mouth than with your hands. So I use that in refereeing a lot. You could talk to them, and when I say Sean, but I had no problems with Sean. I could talk to him and say something, okay, that's enough. Are we done now? Is there you've done your little thing? Is that it? Just whatever, and be human to them. So can't say as I ever had any long-standing issues or feuds. Within a game, yeah, but then the next game, I really tried to take the approach the next game is a new game, because it's the only way you can go out fair for the participants. Because if you got preconceived notions about who's playing, no different than they shouldn't have preconceived. I used to say, don't judge me that I'm going to ref it a certain way. I haven't seen how you're going to play it.
What were those kind of tougher calls, sort of thing? Was it the change from the hook and grab sort of thing to, kind of all of a sudden having to change that mentality of kind of how to work the game and how to make those adjustments? Or were there bigger changes along the way that you kind of said, okay, now we really almost have to, go back to getting used to the new process, kind of thing?
Well, that was a big one for guys like I grew up in the let them play era, and that's what they wanted it. And so if a guy got hooked or held and he still made the play, you let it go. Then I remember being at an actual rules meeting in 2004 with Stephen Walcom, and they had players and GM. Marty St. Louis was there, Scott Niedermeyer. They showed some clips, and one of them was of Scott Niedermeyer coming from behind the net and he getting hooked, and then he made the pass. So the discussion was, well, you still made the play. And he replied, it's not the play I wanted to make. And then it was like a light bulb went off. I remember in my head thinking, oh my God, like, you made a play, but he goes, it's not the play I wanted to make. And it's the only play he could make because he was being hooked. And even I then thought, but it was a big transition to start calling those because it wasn't what we called, it wasn't what players expected, but didn't take long before they started liking it, actually. Not the guys getting the penalties, but the guys that had skill. They were, this is, and let them play, it's kind of code for let them cheat, right?
Let them get away with it kind of thing.
Yeah, so I don't mind the new game. I'm all for it. From when I was still on the ice, I was all for it. And hey, I still play hockey, and I don't really like a guy hooking at or whacking at my hands either, because I always say I don't have the puck in my hand. Why is your stick at my hand? The puck is on my blade. So it is common sense, really.
And I know, especially people that are on the ice, and I know this is the guy with a microphone on periodically talking, but my personal favorite, and you always get the 1,000 officials and multi-thousands of officials in the arena that know what they're talking about. My favorite chirp in the world is always, "Get out of the way, ref." And then the time that you're, the puck's coming around, you're trying to get out of the way. And and it's funny because I've made a habit of doing it now. They've got to be somewhere, folks. It's not like they're trying to get in the way.
Well, I tell people that said sometime when you go to a game, because people watch the game, but just watch the officials. And when I'd have friends go for the first time to a game, they would watch me more than the game because they wanted to see what I was doing. And I almost every time they would say, "Wow, you get out of the way a lot." Like, we see the time that they get hit, but if you just focus next time you watch a game, watch the linesman along the boards, watch the guy, they get out of the way like 30 times a period. So they do get out of the way exceptionally well. People, yeah, sure, they see would get in the way, but you don't. I thought you were going to use the old line, "Hey, ref, you're missing a good game." And I worked with John Wilsey. He's a London native, and he was the top referee in the OHL for years. And John would actually chirp back and forth with the fans in small arenas. And I can remember a fan yelling one time, "Hey, Wilsey, you're missing a good game." And he goes, "I know, but they sent me to this one." So I was like, that's a good comeback.
How is it later on in the career, as you said, when the respect level comes around and you're having those conversations? And I know especially when I've seen it a bunch of times where officials have said it's their last year, or it's the last game, or people know that it's their last year, if it's maybe their last game in certain buildings, sort of thing. You see the players coming over and having that conversation, sort of thing. How meaningful is that for guys, sort of thing? Is it at that point that they finally see, okay, maybe this guy, and whether it be a player, a coach, whatever it may be, we've had our battles, but that it's at that point you realize, all right, yeah, there is that full respect and appreciation for the job that you guys do?
Unbelievable and meaningful. Just my own example, my second last game was in St. Louis, and I'm in the room, and after the game, there's a knock on the door, and it's Brett Hall, Kelly Chase, and Al McInnes, and they're all retired, but they work for the Blues. And they'd heard I was retiring, and they come in, and they had got a bottle of wine made, and they had my name on it, and they'd all signed it. And I was up here in my office. I haven't drank the wine, and it's funny, I could grab it, but Brett Hall says, "Well, me and Al signed it. We're both in the Hall of Fame, but Chaser, he ruined it because he put his name on it." So they all signed it, but the two Hall of Famers and then this guy. So it was hilarious. And they were in the room having a couple of beers, and so cool that and Brett Hall would chirp you on the ice, but at the end of the day, he came down to the room. So, and then my final game in Detroit, the players, just what you said, they lined up to shake my hand, and Buffalo Sabres were there. Teddy Nolan was calling me over. I refed the OHL where he was in the Sioux when they had those top teams in the Sioux. I did the finals every year that they went to the Memorial Cup. So him and I had a great relationship. So he waved me over and shook my hand. And then Daniel Alfredson was playing with the Red Wings that year. There's a knock on the door, and he comes walking in after the game with a stick. I didn't ask for a stick. He came in. I have this picture, and he brought me to tears, actually, because we always got along, yes, but I didn't find it. He just, when you're getting showered, a hockey player, and you're going to catch an airplane or a bus to the airport, and you got to make a point of going down to the referee's room, see the referee that's retiring. Yeah, that was pretty special.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You made the request to do your last game in Joe Louis Arena?
Yeah, they give you a choice now to where to work your last game. I mean, I'm the same distance to Detroit and Toronto, and but I like working in both. But Detroit provided probably more opportunity for my friends to come to the game. Oh, that's kind of a funny story too. I invited 10 or 15 people. Gibby was on the invite list, but word got around, and then the next thing you know, I had people telling 75 people showed up. I have this great picture. It's a dog pile picture. I'm in the room after with Daniel Alfredson. I've gotten my gear off, and then the security guy comes in. The game's over, and he says, "Hey, you got to go out for a picture on the ice." I said, "What? Get your gear back on. All your friends are on the ice." And the running staff had taken all my 75 people out on the ice. They're all walking around, and they're all hockey fans, so they can't believe this. And then I skate out. I lie on the ice on the center thing, and they all gather around, and we do a dog bow picture. That's one of my proud possessions.
Absolutely. And obviously, as you mentioned, you make the transition to the role you're in now, working with the, with the NHL offices kind of thing. What was that like sort of thing to it? Was it strange initially to not go from that, as you say, make the reservations, get everything going and figure out where you're going to go for the next few, to work the games, or obviously now, is it kind of a version of that still?
It's kind of a version of that. I go to games but when Steven hired me off the ice, there was no one in this role. He's director and vice president of officiating, and I'm director of officiating operations. And I remember saying to him, "What is this?" And he goes, "Whatever it needs to be." And basically, meaning I look after everything from scheduling to expenses to approving travel if there's issues with the officials to. It's a lot longer list than that, but I can't. But it's a lot. But I can do a lot of my house. But I still go to games. I still supervise and coach officials and go to games. And then in the playoffs, we always have an officiating manager as a series manager. So this last year I was manager for 3 playoff rounds. So you're still involved in going to the rink, being around the guys, being at the games, and that's pretty cool because then instead of being involved with the players, I actually meet with the head coach and GM of each team through the playoffs. And that could be a challenge, but a fun challenge, actually. I really took it on as I enjoyed it. But you're dealing with the top guys, so it's more one-on-one.
I won't ask specifics of who, but what are those biggest challenges, especially in those situations?
Well, last year I was a series manager for Vegas and Montreal, so there was some issues in that series. I'm not trying to lead myself into a corner here. There was some issues, and you just go and I would meet with Peter DeBoer, and it's up to the team who you meet with. So in Vegas' case, I would meet with Peter DeBoer, and in Montreal's case, Mark Bergevin would like to meet with me. I got great with both those guys. I actually refereed both of them. Like Peter was a minor league guy in Milwaukee, played for the Windsor Spitfires. So he played in the 80s with Adam Graves with the Windsor, and I was an OHL official linesman. And then Mark was a pretty good player, actually defenseman with St. Louis and Pittsburgh. So you already have a rapport. So it's actually pretty good. I enjoy it. They're very professional, very good. They raise it if they have a concern, they raise it, and you might say, "Yeah, I get your point." And it's I kind of enjoy it. It's you're dealing with important people, but they're very respectful and it's a unique challenge, and I enjoy it.
Is it more of a scenario of they're like, "Don, we need your guys to look out a little bit more for this or that or those kind of things," or is it a I don't want to say complain fest of this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened sort of thing?
No, it's more it's more of because they're the smart ones, and they're all pretty smart. They're thinking about the next game, so they're talking about what they might see as a trend, and they might say, "I think that this is that they're doing this to us," and that. And I'll say, "You know what? You're right, they are," or I might say, "No, they're not." But so it's not argumentative at all. It's a information session, and and I tell them, I said, if I think it's an issue, I will tell the officials to watch out for it, but I won't tell them an issue because you told me it's an issue. It'll be whether I think it's an issue. And they said, "No, that's fair." It's really good. They were really good guys. Everybody. I've done this now 7 years. I think I've done 22 playoff series. I've always gone to third round of the playoffs. So I've dealt with a lot of coaches, GMs, and the coaches on the bench, but you don't have that personal. I go sit and have a coffee for a half hour, sit with Joel Quenneville for a half hour, and you end up talking hockey, and you talk, and it's pretty cool.
From that, you mentioned obviously the talking to the referees, the mentoring, the guys that are kind of making their way up, kind of thing. Is there a mold for a referee in 2020 and plus sort of thing? I know we talked about the fact that there's like some local guys, as I said, Sandlack and Corey Severett, and those guys that have they played and now they've made that transition. I know even talking to those guys, they kind of said they're it's a bit of a mixed bag of guys from backgrounds sort of thing. It's not all one streamline.
100%. The one thing I would say, and it was always important that you could skate, but because of that speed of the game, like the skating aspect and skill level of the official to be able to skate, and so the fitness and conditioning and skating. I always pride myself in being was very complimentary. I did pride myself in being in good shape, but I don't know if I've ever at the level that these guys are at now. They are, and that is the one common denominator. They can fly, and usually, and I know there's guys that come up the traditional way that just officiate and haven't played, and they probably looking saying, well, we're only hiring ex players, but we're hiring athletes. So when I refereed, I always played. I played senior A hockey. The OHA got kind of mad at me. They wanted me to strictly ref, and I said I want to play. So I always tell people for referees, what best advice? Well, don't give up playing. Like, playing is what made you learn how to skate, what made you learn how to love the game. So why would you want to quit? I know it's kind of hectic, but I was playing hockey this morning. I play hockey 3 times. I'll play hockey 5 times a week. Gibby, I'll tell you that. I still want to play hockey. So I think that's why players, if they can learn the aspects of the officiating, they've got the edge right now because of the athletic ability that you have to be able to stay out of the way.
I got one more, and then anybody watching wants to ask a question, feel free to throw it in, and we'll get that up on screen. You can ask your questions to Don, and I'll get out of your way. But what have been the biggest changes from I mentioned before the speed of it, but was it obviously the video review and those kind of things when it went from with people that I obviously on baseball sort of things, people are saying, gone is the situation of the ref, the umpire, basically, out or safe, and that's the call. If you don't like it, oh well. Now it's a scenario where it just has to be right all of a sudden, and there's so many angles to it. Does it take a certain element away, or is it giving it that consistency of getting the call right, quote unquote, every time?
Yeah, well, for the first biggest change for officiating was single ref to 2 referees. That was a huge change, because when you were the single ref, you did have your style, and everybody accepted that. But but it took a while, took years for the 2 referee system they work off of a standard, so they're supposed to all be trying to call the same kind of plays that we want called. But when the single referee days, hey, this guy doesn't call hooks, this guy, and everybody, again, they like that, but that's gone away. The video review, referees often say we just want to get it right. So I don't think our officials, we don't have a problem. I didn't have a problem with video review initially. It's just to make sure the puck, nothing worse than they tell you after the game the puck's over the line and we didn't see it, and the goal judge didn't turn the light on. Terrible feeling. And then it led into whether the puck was high stick or kicked, help with that, and now there's some delays, but overall there's the coach's challenge thing. I think it's built in a little bit of drama in the game. The guy goes to coach's challenge. I think it's been good for the game, and the reality is that people do want it right, and it didn't. Everybody at home's watching it. You're watching it. You're calling the game. The players on the bench are looking up. The only people that weren't watching it the second time were the officials. So somebody just said, you know what? Let's let them watch it. So it's been good. But that was the 2 referee system and then video review probably were the biggest changes.
You probably got tired of hearing, Donnie, look up there. See, look, that's what happened.
Well, I used to tell the linesman, take a peek up at the clock on the stoppage and find out what the heck happened. Might as well get as much intelligence as you can get.
Oh, it's always an interesting one, that's for sure. Gibby mentioned off the top, giving back is obviously a big part of, not only giving back to the game, but obviously, your hometown and your area, and I know of the amount of stuff that when you're involved with the Rockets organization and, all the minor hockey things. How important was that? And has that always been, from your career to now and kind of ongoing sort of thing?
Well, very important. And Chris and my wife, Chris, and we talked about that early in my career. I always wanted to do something. And we'd been to some charity events. And in 1996, we did our first ball game. And there's tons of golf tournaments, so we wanted to do something different. So we came up with a celebrity ball game. Well, I mean, we had Joe Thornton, Ty Domi, Adam Graves, Doug Elmore. Like, again, I had players coming out of the woodwork for me, and then the officials. So we would have two celebrity teams, media people. Uh, Again, Jimmy Cressman and Joe Saratory used to ump it. And it was a lot of fun. So it was important, and the community. We used to get a couple thousand fans at the ball game. So it was a really fun weekend. It was a lot of. I still have the odd referee that says, "When are we going to have another ball game?" But it's a lot of work. But it was fun, and it was good. And the Sunshine Foundation, to have the kids to do the Dream Lift to Walt Disneyland was pretty special.
Got a couple questions in, so we'll get them in here. Our good friend and coach of the program, and if it'll actually pop up on screen because I'm losing it at this point. We often hear that good old Patty Ouellette. We often hear that hockey is the only sport where the quote rule changes according to the score or the time left on the clock. What is your opinion?
Well, my opinion is that has been said forever. So I don't know if whatever I'll answer, Patrick will believe it or not, and it'll just continue. I do believe that players play differently and do adapt when the time is most important. I mean, we talked about it the other day. We were talking, and I was talking to a coach. He said, like, I'm harping come playoff time. Keep your stick down. Don't take a penalty. We can't, like when you're playing Tampa Bay, you can't take a penalty. So there is some of that. Am I going to say that it doesn't? Nobody is directed to call less penalties in the playoffs or late in games. I do know as an official, you're sitting there not wanting to make a mistake. Like, it's not that you don't want to call a penalty because that could affect, but you also are more cognizant about not making a mistake late in games, and you don't ever want to make a mistake, but you bear down, so to speak. So I don't think it's as big an issue as it's always made out to be. But I guess I'm on the bias side of from the officiating angle.
It's more play it smart at that point of the year, right?
Players are smart. They adapt. No different than you don't see a lot of hooks on the hands. We called a lot, 10 or 15 a game for a couple of years. You'd have to go find one now because they don't do it as much. So it does work, but I understand that being said. But he referees. He knows you are cognizant that everything is magnified, and you don't want to make a mistake and call. There's nothing worse than calling something that didn't happen. That's worse than missing something that did.
Jim Weiss is looking forward to seeing you in a real question. What is your view on fighting in the game? Obviously, it comes up all the time. What do you predict? Will it continue or to be less of a factor in the game going forward?
Well, first off, Jim, I'll be playing next Monday, Team 8, LSH League. Love it. Great league. Well, yeah, it is becoming. I felt hockey had a place in the game. I'm probably an old dinosaur. Do I think it? But it's less and less of a place in the game, and it is going to, it doesn't happen a lot anymore. So people used to say, why do we allow fighting? And I'd say, well, we don't. You go to the penalty box for 5 minutes, and they go, what? I go, well, you get a penalty. You have to. I get, you're not kicked out. I think it's going to work. It'll probably work its way out, but I'm not an advocate for having it taken out of the game, and not at the NHL level.
Is that a situation where obviously the teams have just adjusted to that because there's no longer, as you say, the guy on the team that was just there for the fighting purpose? Now they have to be very obviously cognizant of the number of guys they have on their team and the role that they can serve and what they can bring to the game as well.
Well, when I started, every team had 2 or 3 or 4 heavyweights, literally, maybe 4 or 5. But back then, shifts were 2 minutes. But it's something people don't talk about a lot. Like, Wayne Gretzky, Mary Louie, like they probably stayed out. They might be on the ice for a couple of minutes, but now 35, 40 seconds, it's roll. That's another reason the game's so fast. And then if you don't have a fourth line, that means your first line's back on the ice in a minute and a half, 2 minutes. They can't do it. So your fourth line has to be able to skate and play some minutes. So that's another big change that nobody talks about in the game. The length of shifts, the high tempo is always a sprint. So that's you still got a guy like Ryan Reeves, but he can play hockey. He's a decent hockey player. So you have to be able to play.
How different was, and this was something I remember we asked Bo Horvat in the first season about the difference of the Canadian division and the all those alignments sort of thing. How different was that from the officials' perspective, and how different was the entire setup in the game? Obviously, the game stays the same, but just the different setup for that sort of scenario.
Very good question, Ryan. Hugely different. Unbelievable. We had 7 because of border crossing. We had to keep seven referees, 7 linesmen just work the North Division. I don't know how they did it. To work the same teams, the same games. There's a respect level, but overexposure is not good for anybody. Even the teams having to play each other. It was got through the year. There was no other way to do it. But for the officials, they really earned their paycheck. To me, the guys in Canada and the scrutiny in Canada, I wouldn't have wanted to do it. They had to work. And if you did a game in Montreal and you flew over to Toronto or Ottawa, you were going to be working. The visiting team was going to be over there, and then you went over here, and the team that was the home team from the 2 nights was over there. Like they just kept working the same. Be like working a beer league and working the same teams over and over. It would be tough. They did a hell of a job. There was a lot of scrutiny, but I give them kudos for doing it.
Pat's got another one, so we'll let it get in. Most memorable game you officiated and the most heartbreaking game you officiated that you felt bad for a player, either losing a big game or an injury or something along that line.
Oh, memorable game, the Winter Classic. Gibby mentioned that. I got to do the very first one at Ralph Wilson Stadium in 2008. I just never experienced anything like walking out to the ice and 80,000 people. And even though it was 1 o'clock, the lights were on and the snow, and just that's a indelible memory in my mind that I will never lose. Very bad for a player. I guess the obvious one is Yuri Fisher collapsing on the bench. You can watch that video. I skated. I didn't do anything. It was on the internet that I did chest compression. No, the doctor saved his life. I took his skates off. I went over there. I can remember crawling down. I was taking this, and then one of the rushers saying, "Don't touch." I said, "These have to come off." Circulation, and I knew enough from policing in the hospital. When you go to the hospital, they don't know how to get hockey skates off. They're trying to cut them, and we hockey players, you just undo them from the top and work your way down. So I took his skates off. That's all I did. But that Yuri Fisher, to this day, when I see him, he comes to find me in the press box, wants to give me a hug. Just that he knows that I was there and tried to help him, and kind of emotional, actually. He was only 23 at the time, I think, so, or 25, maybe. He pretty much almost died on the bench, and those doctors saved his life. So that's the most memorable thing in that regard.
And just to switch gears a little bit, but obviously officials, we've seen the microphones announcing penalties. We've seen some some personalities come out now a little bit, sort of thing. We all know where I'm going here. Wes McCauley with his element to it, sort of thing. But is it a scenario that you're not trying to get in the way and obviously upstage anything, but there is room for that. There's room for personality, and that's the same thing that people have been saying on the media side of things now. And I know hearing Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick on their show, the media asks for people to be honest and have an answer and have an opinion. It's the same thing. There's nothing wrong with a referee having a little flair, I think, or is it? Or maybe...
No. Wes and I are good friends, and I was at the first game that he chose to do something dramatic. It was in San Jose like 6 years ago, and he had a coach's challenge. He had a video review on a goal late in the game, and I'm sitting there and I'm supervising the game, and he literally goes on, and then he comes on the mic and he says, "After video review, we have a goal." I nearly fell out of the press box. I was laughing, but the place went. Now it was the home team's goal, so San Jose, the building. But he paused and I got to say, I was sitting there going, "I love it. I love it." Like Wes, you have to know Wes. Wes just loves the game. He is not a showboat. He just really enthusiastically loves. If you see video, if there's every back video and play, he's talking to the play. He just loves me out there. he loves the game. He's just a natural for him. So he's not trying to showboat. It just comes natural for him, and players love him. So I don't think there's a problem. Nobody's ever told him not to do it. He's not. I don't think it's calculated in the sense that he's trying to get attention. He has a little bit of a flair.
I know for me, one of my favorite things to do now is watch the referees mic'd up videos just to kind of see that interaction. Because again, that there's that conversation that's ongoing. You're not just kind of skating around and watching what happens. So before I pass things back over to Clark, I know I have to throw in my one story. It's the time that you got a little upset with me. It was London National Strathroy Rockets. It may have been a playoff series. And the best part was I was the one who got the email, but it wasn't me who actually made the comment. I won't say who it was, but if you know the year. We're doing a game in London, and I believe the comment was made that tomorrow night going into Strathroy, the capacity at the building is, I think at that point I looked it up, it was about 800 and some odd. I believe the comment from my color commentator was, it may be this, but it'll probably be closer to 1,200. But don't worry about the fire marshal; he's in the third row. The next morning, in my email inbox, I was like, I did not expect to wake up to an email that said Don Van Massenhoven, and when I looked at it, I went, "Oh, he was watching that, was he?"
I probably I would have been on the road because when I was on the road and had an off night, I was always. The great part about you guys in the Nationals, I could watch the games, so I could watch the Rockets game. So, yeah, I was watching. Sorry,
I
just didn't want us getting in trouble with the fire marshal who wasn't in the third. I don't even know who the fire marshal is or was.
The best part of it was I turned around and I said I called him automatically, and I was like, "Well, we've upset Van Massenhoven, so we're never getting into Strathroy again."
I don't think you got barred though, did you?
I don't think there is another building in the GOJHL that doesn't let me in, but we'll leave that one for another day. Pat's got one more before I pass it over to Clark. Best advice you would give to a 14 or 15-year-old referee who is just starting?
Well, I kind of touched on it earlier. Keep playing hockey. I know it can be hard, but try to play hockey because I really feel to officiate you have to love the game. Like it's hard to officiate abuse. You have to love the game. And if you just officiate it, it might be hard to love the game because you're not going to get a lot of love back. So love the game, fit play, and then treat the players with respect. John Wilsey told me early on, he taught me so much, and he said, Don, they pay us to do these games, and I don't care if it's a novice game or an NHL game, you give it your best because they're expecting it from you because they paid you. And that's another I got a novice game. No, it's the kids that are out there expecting the best. So give it your best, no matter what the level, your league, whatever.
Don, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate it. As a hockey fan who's enjoyed, watching you over the years and being a local guy, sort of thing, knowing that the guy out officiating the game, I know was always a fun one when you kind of go, hey, that guy's from my area. So it's not just the players, the officials too. So I appreciate this. So I will let Clark take over and take us out. Clark.
Thanks a lot, Ryan. Don, just before we wrap it up, I just had a quick question about the War Room in Toronto, with the 100 TVs there. You see the officials now at the penalty box with the iPads and looking at the play, reviewing the play. But are they also doing that in the War Room in Toronto and communicating directly with the officials? And who gets the final call on the penalty, the goal, the offside, those type of things?
Well, you're talking to the right guy because I was in that War Room 50% of the games last year. So a couple of years ago, the GMs requested that we have a hockey operations department doing an amazing job. Chris King, Rod Pasma, Mike Murphy, Coley Campbell. So they are in charge of the situation room in Toronto, and they oversee everything. And then we added in a couple of years ago an ex-retired official to be in there to knowledge of the rules and to help with the decision-making process. So because of border issue, we have 6 guys that rotate through, but because of the border last year, Bill McCurry would work 5 nights, then I would work 5. Then him and I are the only 2 in Canada. Okay. So one of us was in there, and we are involved. The situation room has final say. The referees are brought over. Yeah, when you see a referee with a headset on, then they're actually talking to the guys in the situation room, Chris King, Rod Pasma, and we have double headsets, so I'll be on there as well. And we're talking directly with them. They're looking at it. Usually it's a common agreement amongst us. I can't even count one time where we didn't all agree, what, this has to be overturned, or this is still a good goal. We come together. It's not like, no, I don't, we don't argue. It's video. There's the gray ones, but on the gray ones, if it's gray and we're kind of humming on, then we're not, the direction is don't change the call on the ice. If it takes you that long to try to decide, you just stay with the call. So the offside thing's gotten better with the leg in the air. I wasn't totally an advocate for it, but that was a Coley Campbell idea, and honestly, it's really helped reduce the confusion on is that skate touching or not. If it's above the plane, then he's still onside, and I think that's better for the spirit of the rule.
Great. Well, thanks again for all your great stories and information tonight. I just finished with this one thought. Dan mentioned, and I'll share this with you and the audience, you're not only a great official, but just a fabulous person. And I know that in the last 10 or 12 days, when people have talked to me a little with the hot stove and who's on and that type of thing, and I live in a small community outside London, and a number of people have said, "Oh, I know Don. I play hockey with Don." So, you're well respected, Don, right around the area. And, that has come back to me the last couple weeks as I've been talking to people. So thanks again for taking an hour of your very busy schedule to join us on the second season of the virtual hot stove tonight. We wish you all the success, not only in your recreational hockey playing, but most importantly in your job as the director of officiating operations. Hopefully the year is very normal in the National Hockey League, and we get to travel across the US a little bit. So thanks again, everybody. I'm sure appreciated and really enjoyed all the information that you provided. Best of luck. Thanks to Gibby. I'll see you tomorrow at the Purple and White game, Gibby. And again, thanks to our host Ryan for doing a great job. Our next hot stove is early November with Tom Rennie, former NHL coach and CEO of Hockey Canada. We'll send out further details in the next few weeks on that hot stove registration. Thanks, everybody. Have a great fall weekend. Take care.
Thanks, Clark. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Don.